Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hello, my friend, and thanks for joining me on another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. We are in season 3, rocking and rolling. And on today's episode, we got me and Kane, co-founders of Coach Catalyst. This is an easy intro, right? Because it's all about Coach Catalyst. So we did a part 1 of this, and we did part 1 a few months ago, and it's a great episode. So if you're really interested in like the backstory, the idea on where Coach Catalyst came from, and a little history on Kane and I, definitely check out that episode. This episode, we dig more into the kind of origin of Coach Catalyst, so like actually launching the product to today. And we talk about a lot of things. We talk about the future of Coach Catalyst. We talk about the industry. We talk about technology. And so if you're interested at all in the Coach Catalyst journey, this is going to be a great episode for you. So without further ado, I'll see you on the other side with me and Kane. Kane, welcome back to the Coach Catalyst podcast. That's right. You're right. Part 2. Part 2
to be on the Coach Catalyst podcast.
And I talked about this in the intro, but if you do want to catch kind of the beginnings of Coach Catalyst idea, all of that, check out part 1. Today, we're going to just kind of keep the conversation going. Yeah, there's going to be a little overlap from what we talked about last time, but we kind of want to take really what we're doing with these episodes is we're pulling back the curtains a little bit on the company and kind of how we're thinking about it and how we're growing and how we're having issues just like every other company, and how we think about those and ultimately how we're trying to serve coaches at the highest level. So Coach Catalyst is going to be 8 in June. Is that correct? Well, it's based around your daughter's birthday. So
I think so. Yeah. Yep. We launched. Yeah, it's 2 weeks after she was born. I think we went live in 2016.
It is nice having that benchmark. It makes it a little bit easier to remember how old the company is. Right, you would think so. Right. So, there's been a lot of evolution in the last 8 years, right? We started with this like idea that we were able to bring to fruition when we look back at first kind of prototypes of Coach Catalyst, like very embarrassing. Like, I don't know how anyone trusted us with a credit card with access to that kind of stuff. But that's kind of where you start, like it's anything, right? And so a good question I like to think about is we're 8 years older, but what hasn't changed in your mind since like day 1 when we were launching Coach Catalyst?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that question because, I mean, obviously, like roles have changed, the product's changed, so much has changed, but I think there are a couple fundamentals that haven't, right? I think at the end of the day, the number one thing is both you and I were coaches, right? We are building the software to make coaches' lives easier. And I think we've kind of always had this thought, but really in the last 2 years, we've kind of really hammered home on the two lenses we always look through. And we probably mentioned this in the last episode. I don't remember, but no matter what we're doing, we always look through the two lenses of, does this save the coach time? And does this enhance the coach-client relationship? And I think throughout the 8 years, no matter what else has changed, like we're still coaches who are looking at things through that lens and trying to make sure that we build the best possible product for other coaches, not the best tech product, not the best software. Like, how can we build the best thing for coaches versus just what looks pretty, what's in right now? I think we've done a good job of avoiding some of the fads and some of that stuff and just made sure that,
right. Because
we actually
at the end of the day, coaching is an inherent human process, right? And a term that we've come up with and we've really started using it heavily within the last year is this idea of a super coach. And the whole premise behind a super coach, right, is you use technology or use Coach Catalyst to make you a super coach. It gives you a superpower, right? And so, but it's not going to change like who you are, right? It's going to enhance certain aspects of it. And so if you're not a very good coach, it will enhance certain aspects of that. And we just go become a better coach, right? If you're a great coach, but you just have trouble scaling and trouble providing a good experience for lots of people, it will enhance that aspect of it. So we've really leaned into this idea of a super coach because we really feel that like if you've developed the coaching skills to be a great coach and you add technology to that, like it's like it enhances what you're doing and allows you to kind of go to that next level and gives you a little bit of a superpower to be able to just change more lives. And I know like we like had the idea for super coach probably like 3-4 years ago. Yeah. It was like, like we want to do that. Like, and what were some of the other ideas that we had? With Changemaker, that was one. And then Berardi goes and launches a book called Changemaker. And then so we're like, oh, we can't call it Changemaker now because Berardi just launched this book. So we just came back on Super Coach.
Yeah, we had a tough time coming up with the term, right? You always wanted that term to be able to call people, kind of name themselves. I'm a CrossFitter, right? I'm a funnel hacker. Like all that stuff to be able to give an identity to your community is huge. And I don't think we loved Super Coach right away, but it just kind of, that was the one that stuck around the most and it made the most sense. Because like you said, at the end of the day, we're augmenting, we're enhancing things. And I think it kind of came up. I don't remember if this is exact origin, but I remember it distinctively talking to you one day and talking about like, well, in the gym, you know, when you make that client feel special, right? You use their name. They feel like, oh my gosh, I'm his favorite client. Like he's always reaching out. He's always talking to me. But if you can do that for every single person, if they all feel like they're your favorite, like that gives you a superpower. It makes you feel like a super coach. And we love just the whole, you know, like, I think it was your wedding. We all had like superhero t-shirts underneath our suits and like opening up the suit and having a superhero shirt.
It's been
like,
fun. And
we love that concept.
We've started to see, if you followed any of Coach Catalyst's evolution, right, you're seeing kind of a resurgence of Habby. So I've actually got the old school, I wore the old school Habby shirt today, which is like the original Habby. The collar is a little bit wrangled, but and so Habby's kind of come back into as a little bit of that mascot to give a little bit of like personality, and we're able to use the cat in a bunch of different ways. And so the design team has done like an incredible job in just finding ways to add some element of personality probably to it, because I think tech can be this really kind of just dry numbers, does the thing, and we want it to really be more than that, and people can really touch it and resonate with it a little bit more. I don't think so.
Yeah. Do you remember what the initial inspiration for Habby was?
Oh, what's Evernote's? Elephant.
Evernote.
Yeah.
So the elephant, because, you know, elephants remember everything. They have a perfect memory. We loved when we first launched, I mean, again, 2016, 2017, we loved that aspect of like a logo, a little mascot, like an animal, something that resonates. And so that was like where we were going off of, because I know you were a huge Evernote user way back in the day. And so like that, we're like trying to find that piece. And we almost went with a turtle because we were like habit, kind of like slow and steady. And we almost went with a turtle. And I don't exactly remember why we went with a hat.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was like, but it was kind of like
that's how like
cat
we got
and habits. Like you had a couple cats. Like I think I had a cat at the time. Oh, right. Oh, there you go.
I think it must have just been Catalyst. Like,
well, I think like didn't Trello have like Taco the dog or something like that at that time too?
One of my biggest takeaways is
the biggest takeaway is the one specific takeaway.
Biggest takeaway for me was probably content, showing up more online with more of my personality, more education, growing my personal brand as well as my company's brand.
Making sure that you're marketing to the right people, not just trying to be everything to all people. Is the social media marketing aspect. How do you go about creating content not only for your audience, but also for an audience that you don't have yet?
Is how passionate everybody is and
how everybody is willing to help in this industry. They made me realize that I can also be there. I can be in that space. It's not that hard.
Is to reach out to many people I met here and talk to them, because the wealth of knowledge is so fantastic that it's just really exciting to be able to have these contacts to be able to talk to.
Something that rang in my head as the day went on was letting everyone you know how well you know them.
This event could change the trajectory of our whole business the next 12 months, definitely the next 90 days. So that alone is worth coming.
You have to own the communication with your client. So making sure that you're their go-to reference and building a network
is how do you help your clients continue to stay uncomfortable and grow?
So yeah, but Happy kind of went away for a while as we got kind of focused on other things like building the software, but has made a resurgence, and it's kind of a fun. It's a fun element to the platform as well, and we've been able to use the cat in a bunch of different ways throughout, just to add some more personality into the actual platform. But I mean, let's go back to this. So we talked a little bit about kind of the early launches, pricing models, that kind of stuff early on. I mean, I think it's worth even just talking about like when we first launched, right? Like we did not have like a dev team. Like we did not have in-house development. We had to basically outsource everything that we were doing. And because we were bootstrapped, we only had so much money to do so much at each time. And we were working with an outside shop where we would meet with them. I remember this is when I was living in Madison. We would be in a conference room with Brian and we'd kind of talk about, hey, here's what we want to do. And then he would like poo-poo this and tell us we can't do that. And this is how you got to do it. And like early on, it was just like everything. It was like you and I and just outsourcing everything else.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was literally sit down and here's a list of everything we want to do. Cool. Here's the price to do all that. Okay, let's back up a little bit. Like, what can we do for this amount of money that we actually have available for the next, couple weeks? We can do that. Okay, that's fine. That works. But I think it was really challenging because we had a vision for what we wanted to be in the future. Obviously, we couldn't build it all right there, but we knew like, hey, in the future, we want to be able to do all this stuff. But it was tough to communicate that. And because we didn't always communicate it well, they built things in a way that made it harder in the future. Because they were an outside dev shop, it was more just, okay, cool, you told me I needed this, we built it for you. And that's it. Whereas for you and I, we were so invested that it was more, oh, no. Like we want it to become this eventually, so we need to build it in a certain way. And I think it took us a while. At least it took me a while to get used to that. To use that communication, to make sure I got my point across and to make sure we're looking at the future in mind, because we actually wasted a lot of money rebuilding certain things when we wanted to add new features that we couldn't easily do. I mean, messaging and metrics. I think those were one of the first 2 additional features we added. And we had to rebuild like the entire system because they didn't have the concept of a client. Because if I added you to a habit program for February and I added you to another habit program in March, you were like 2 different users. And so we had to like completely rip out a bunch of stuff, and it made it more complex and confusing. And I think just without a super strong tech background, trying to talk to outside tech people and dev people about what you want to build.
I think at the time too, we had kind of a vision. We knew kind of a general direction that we were going, right? But I don't think we really were like super clear on, because when we initial launched, right, like it was very much this like education program. It was accountability around habits. It was kind of like a PN, precision nutrition type of approach, right? This very like sequential. And then as we were like doing that, we're like, oh man, this needs to be bigger than this. And we need this from a coaching perspective and this from a coaching perspective. And so like the product really started to evolve, I think, as we were getting deeper and deeper into it. And probably one benefit of us not having a ton of money, right, was we had to think about each step in a lot more detail and kind of think about, all right, what's the next step after that, versus just being like, hey, here's, $1 million or $2 million and like, just go build everything. Right. And we were like, okay, we have this small amount. What can we do right now? And then what has to happen after that? But I mean, looking back at it, right, knowing what you know now, because now you've been in this space, now we have a dev team, now like everything is in-house. What would you have done differently? Or how maybe you've approached those early days to maybe get a quicker or more effective result?
Actually, on the dev side, I probably wouldn't have done anything different except had a little more urgency, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we could have had a little more urgency in trying to ship things without it being perfect right away and getting more feedback from clients instead of waiting, talking, figuring it out, assuming we know what they want necessarily, building too much of it almost, and then like having to tweak from there. I think I was shipped quicker, even if it wasn't 100%. But honestly, I think the constraints helped, right? We see so many bloated products out there right now with, well, of course we'd have this feature. Like everybody has this feature, but like, why do you actually have it? Is it actually providing benefit for the coach and giving the client a better experience or not? And so I think you've seen that in our industry and people are getting sick of it. I think they're coming to realize I don't want overbloated software. I want something simple to use. I want something effective that makes my life easier and it's easy for my clients to use, but not just, hey, I have features for feature's sake. So I think dev standpoint, the process was the right process. I would have just probably shipped quicker on certain things.
I'm curious on your opinion on this. Do you think, so this was 8 years ago, right? Do you think in today's environment, right, that you can still get by with kind of like a not necessarily do you think people would stick around if we were to launch again, let's say now, right, with the same kind of jankiness? Do you think you could get the same, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but like where coaches are willing to wait a little bit because they see the potential on where this is going? Or do you feel like we're in a different environment today?
I think it depends.
Yes.
I think there's still a little bit of that if they know you, right? If they have a relationship with you, I think you can get more leeway in that sense. I also think these days it has to look nice, right? I think design is a big aspect these days. Our first ones were so ugly. Like if we launched that now, like we'd be laughed out of every single room. Like it was awful. And I think with so much, the software's exploded lately. So I think it would have to look a lot nicer. I don't think we'd need all the functionality, right? I mean, I use plenty of softwares that are limited, but they do the one thing I need really, really well. And if I believed the team was the right team to understand my problem, and I knew, and they showed we use a couple softwares in our company right now that are not perfect, but the team responsible for them is receptive and they move quickly and they fix things and they're open to hearing feedback and moving on it. Yeah. I mean, I think we could easily do
Honestly,
that.
the favorite part of the event.
My favorite part was
My favorite part of the event has to be the people. Everybody from the presenters to the attendees have such an energy and a passion for what they do.
Seeing my coach Justin Harris speak and also Stan Efferding, that was awesome.
I'm loving the connections, the opportunity to speak with a lot of the other speakers, with the audience. I'm really enjoying the setup of the event because it's really keeping a lot of open doors for you to just speak to everybody.
seeing how these high-level business owners and people who are where I want to be, who I embody, is seeing how they think, how they operate.
Inspiring, getting inspired by industry leaders, taking things that I can apply immediately in my business.
I think outside of the amazing speakers that you guys had, is that everybody's pretty much like out there.
My favorite part of the event was really just meeting with other professionals, people that are outside of my circle, really great people, and learning kind of who they are and how they can make their clients better and make the industry better. better.
I really liked what Coach Gav had to say about the environment always wins. I think he used an analogy about the fish aren't sick, the water's dirty. Creating the right environment, whether it's on your team or with specifically working with your clients, creating the right environment is always the key to success.
Yeah, I mean, the environment is just different. Tech is a little bit more accessible nowadays than it was then. And design is more accessible now than it was maybe then.
Yep.
I mean, some of the like we were using like MindBody at the time, so there was like these elements of like MindBody design in there, and MindBody isn't designed well. But like this is like old school MindBody before their redesign in there, and yeah, it was pretty janky. That wasn't it?
That was
2.0.
The MindBody design was our second iteration too. It wasn't even the first. The first one, it was like this bright green header, which is super big blocks everywhere. Like I pulled it up about a couple months ago and looked at it.
We'll see if the team can pull some images throughout this and throw them up. But so on your point, right? Like one thing we talk about a lot is how do we keep Coach Catalyst simple, right? Because it's really easy, I think, to just bloat stuff with lots of features. Hey, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. Like, let's do all of these things, right? And so a conversation that we have all the time, or arguments we have all the time, is like, do we actually need this, right? Or would this be better to play well with a partner and they kind of do their thing? And so that's one thing that we talk about all the time is how do we keep this thing simple?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the struggle. It's something we kind of deal with on a day in, day out basis. And I know I push back more, right? Like just personality wise, I know you are more like, hey, we should do this. We should do this. This is a use case we could solve. And I kind of have to be the naysayer and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that until like we get to a point where we actually do it, or we feel like we should. Like I think workouts is a great example, right? I mean, you were talking for years before we did workouts that we should look into Workout Builder. Like, how is there a simple way to do it? Can we do it? And I pushed back for a long time saying, that's not our wheelhouse. That gets too complicated. There's no way we're doing that. That's not what our coaches want. And eventually the environment
was
changed
COVID,
enough.
right? Like it was COVID. Like we had all
it made
these
sense too, right?
Yeah. We had all these gyms using Coach Catalyst
that was
for
really
challenges, for nutrition coaching, all that kind of stuff. And then it's like gyms are shut down. I need to do workouts and I don't want to have to use you guys and a workout builder. So it's like, okay, cool. That was like the final straw.
Yep. And I think that was like, because before we were very much gym owners, right? Software for gym owners to keep their clients accountable outside the gym. And for us, it's like, we're not going to do a workout builder because people are coming to the gym. Like I was using pen and paper for my workouts inside our gym. Why I won't want to use an app. But we started to make the switch to more online coaches. That's when it was like, okay, yes, like this is a necessity. And I think even now we could add more features, right? And even some of the newer features we've added are great. But the next step is, okay, how do we make them talk well with each other? How do we integrate them better? How do we make it simpler for a coach to use everything in the software without going to a bunch of different pages? And I think that's kind of the key that a lot of these softwares don't do is they build a ton of these, okay, here's a feature here, here's a feature here, here's a feature here. They don't talk to each other. They don't work. They don't like exist within the same ecosystem. You just have them all in here. And I think that's something that I think we do a good job of. And I think we're at least cognizant of, and 100%. We're always striving to get better and better.
On that point, like I think a good example to hammer this home is this idea of like a macro tracker, right? Like we've had lots of conversations like, hey, should we do our own macro tracker? Should we do? And like ultimately we come into, are we going to be able to do a macro tracker better than Macros First? Probably not. Because that's all they focus on every single day is building this incredible macro tracker. And then, well, now my client's going to have a couple apps. Yeah, they will, but they're going to have a good experience, right? Do you want them to have just one app and a crappy experience? Or do you want to have two apps and feel like when they're in their macro tracker, like it's giving them suggestions, and it's doing what it needs to do, right? We're just not going to be able to dedicate the time and the resources that it's going to take to build something elite in that category. And so it's like, why not just find the people that are doing really good work there and find ways to remove friction in the relationship, right? Like with Macros First. The client connects Macros First inside of Coach Catalyst. Cool. All of their food logs transfer over. Awesome. We see their macros inside of Coach Catalyst. I can set their targets inside of Coach Catalyst. I can then hit save and it pushes down to their Macros First app. And then we're just kind of like touching the surface on like what we can do with some of these companies. And it just removes friction within the process. And I think that's another, how do we remove friction in these processes? Because then if the client has a couple apps, cool. But if they're all like kind of talking to each other and doing what they need to do, and Coach Catalyst becomes your centralized hub to coach from, like now that's kind of special. And I'm actually creating a good experience for the client rather than, hey, I got the software that does it all, but like, well, this doesn't work, or this is kind of janky. Cause that's like at Coach Catalyst, right? The coach pays our bills, right? So they are the ones that have subscriptions. But if a client has a terrible experience, right, they're not getting mad at Coach Catalyst, right? They're getting mad at the coach. And then the coach gets mad at Coach Catalyst, right? And so ultimately we serve kind of two layers.
Yeah, we do. And I think that's really tricky. Because we have to have a lot in mind. The coach wants complex, right? They want to be able to do everything. They want to be able to put this program here and pause it and change it and tweak things and do all these complex things. The client literally just wants to know, what am I supposed to do today? Make it as simple as possible. Tell my coach I did it. And like, that's it. And so it's this balance of, okay, how do we give as much power as we can to the software, but make the interface as simple as possible for anybody to be able to use? And I think that's something that, I don't think we have it perfect, but I think it's something that we at least understand, right? And we're striving towards every day, and we're trying to build it better and better that way. And we'll see. I think the all-in-one is interesting, right? A couple of years ago, everybody was trying to do all-in-ones and it didn't really work. Then it kind of went the other way. Now the pendulum's kind of swinging back a little bit. But I think especially when we're talking like macro tracking, yeah, we're not going to, like, Macros First nails it, right? There's no reason for us to try it. I think it's interesting in some of the other things like payments, right? We have the ability to set up a quick little landing page, accept payments, get them into Coach Catalyst, boom. And that's kind of where it's probably going to stop. Like if you actually want a full-on funnel builder with, Facebook pixel codes and tracking and custom thank you pages and all this, like, hey, like Supercoach CRM, it's a great way to do it. It's an add-on. You can handle all your front-end marketing. But we almost want to give the bits and pieces that are necessities. Like I want to be able to accept payments. Cool. The simplest way to accept payments is right here. If you want a bigger version, a more advanced version, here's an integration with another partner that does it really well.
Hey there, coaches. Are you ready to take your coaching game to the next level? Get ready for an unforgettable experience at the Supercoach Summit. Join us at Reston, Virginia on August 24th and 25th, where top-tier coaches from the best in the industry will converge to share insights, strategies, and inspiration. And here's the best part. Lock in your spot with our super early bird tickets. Don't miss out on this limited time offer to save big and secure your seat among coaching's elite. Connect, learn, and grow alongside the best in the industry. Get your super early bird tickets now. Visit virtual.supercoachsummit.com for more information and to secure your spot today.
Well, like anything, right? And this is all subject matter, right? It swings one way, it swings way the other way, and then it kind of like finds a home somewhere in the middle, and then you kind of lean one way or the other depending on what your needs are. And yeah, like I couldn't agree more. Like just me thinking about trying to be an all-in-one and trying to keep everyone happy, because certain people are they're going to lean more towards different features than other people. And so you're going to have these people talking about this feature that's so important for them. And then other people talking about this feature that's so important for them. And I think as a company, unless you're just massive, but even if you're massive, even massive companies don't do it well that have unlimited resources. It's hard to really please anyone because you're kind of like someone has to get the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I mean, I think we actually see this a ton in the productivity space with software. So the Notions of the world, the ClickUps of the world, these big companies that boast the one solution for everything. It's kind of funny. The fine point is they actually are, right? They can actually be the all-in-one for everything. But in order to do that, you almost have to be a blank slate and give them so many different options on how to set things up. It gets overwhelming. So really, there's only a very, very select few people who actually understand the software well enough to set it up to be an all-in-one for everything. What happens more often than not is you get in there, you get paralyzed because like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I could do it this way, or this way, which is going to be best. And you go down all these rabbit holes and you think it's great. And then in 2 months, you realize, I'm not using this at all. I'm going to go back to Trello. Right. That's what happens over and over again. Because the only way to actually be an all-in-one for everything is to be too complex. Like there's so many variables that go into it that you have to cover all the bases, which means in order to set it up, you really have to have a strong understanding of the system and really kind of think through things, which most people don't want to do. They want to get in, they want to have their stuff set up right away, and they just want to do it.
Which is something we think about a lot at Coach Catalyst, and one of our biggest challenges, right, is this idea of conversion, right? Getting someone to actually adopt the platform. Because everyone signs up with like a vision, right? They at least bought into the promise of that this is going to help them do something, or they're curious or they're interested. But like, we're no different than most other software companies. We're not converting 100% of the people that come in for a trial into our kind of paid version. And so for us, it's also figuring out like, how do we give our coaches wins as quickly as possible? And that element of, it needs to be simple enough where I can get in there and get some wins, right? Because if it's complex, we all know this, right? We get in, we play for a little bit. And if we can't quite figure it out, like, all right, we just bounce because it's like, I don't have time to figure this out. And so that's a challenge that we grapple with all the time is like, how do we help coaches? How do we make sure that we give the coach the win they need? Because there's different wins that people need when they come to us, when they're in there, as quickly as possible so they can see the value. So we get a chance to show them the next cool feature or the chance to show them how to do the next piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both have an understanding of what we want to have happen. I don't know if we've figured that out ourselves yet, but it is. I think for a while there, we were kind of like, hey, it's a blank slate. You can do whatever you want. You want to be able to run challenges, do that. Nutrition coaching, do that. Communicate, do that. Hybrid training, do that. Like you can do so many things that we almost wanted to start with a blank slate to give them those options. And I think we saw people got overwhelmed or they didn't know how to start. So I think we've kind of swung back in the other way and been like, no, this is the best path for you to take. Now, 80% of coaches, that's true. There's still 20% who actually need something different. But we have to kind of understand, I think, as a company that those people are going to realize that they want something different and we can help them lead down a different path. But if we can get the 80% of people to actually like, no, add a program, add a client, send them a message. Like if you can go there and see how simple it is to add a habit or add a workout to a client and send them a message quickly, right then and there, you kind of, that light bulb goes off with, oh my gosh, I could use this for so many different things. And so I think just getting those certain basic actions done from a coach is it's huge.
Well, coaching, if we boil coaching down to its like simplest form, it's not really all that complex, right? It's like just getting a client to actually do the thing they need to do consistently enough over a long enough period of time to move towards a result, right? Yeah. And the big gap in coaching, and really what we're trying to solve at Coach Catalyst, is this gap of information. Like, I don't know if my client is actually doing the thing they need to do, right? Like this is coaching, right? It doesn't matter what you're coaching, whether you're coaching fitness or you're coaching nutrition or life coaching or business coaching. It's just it's consistency over time. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in like as coaches, we like to make things a little bit more complex than they are. We want to get caught up in all of these different things. And it's really our whole role is to help the client just do that thing more often and more consistently over a long enough period of time. And really what Coach Catalyst is like, have the data to be able to have that conversation. Because it's great if your client's checking in, but if you're not actually like engaging with that client based upon their check-ins, like why even use the platform? And so like the whole purpose is so that as a coach, I can see, hey, Susie hasn't checked in for 3 days. I follow up and figure out what's going on. Or, hey, Susie has 7 days in a row. I'm reaching out and congratulating her and helping her move forward. And so it just gives you better information on if the client is doing the things they need to do. And then once we're doing that, we can start to layer on top like this idea of education, which has been something that's been at like the core of Coach Catalyst, like since the beginning. And at least up to this point of this recording, like it's still one of the things that makes us different than everybody else. We're kind of this blend between a learning management system and a coaching platform or a workout builder or a habit build. Like we're right in the middle because we can do both. And not in like a janky way of like, hey, create this exercise and then put this video in for the exercise video and use the description to write it. Like it's not like it actually behaves like a lesson, like a curriculum, and makes it simple for the client.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of go back to this concept of what we've talked about forever. Information alone does not create change.
Correct.
But it sure helps augment it if you have like the habits in place, right? Like you can kind of go into this. We know that just sending information isn't going to do anything, but just sending like, hey, drink water today. I don't know why I'm drinking water. Like having a why behind that makes that so much easier to do.
Right.
And so when you merge the two together, that's where it's a lot easier to make a change. And that's what, I mean, like you're talking about as coaches, like everything we want clients to do is not a normal behavior for them. It's a changed behavior. It's a new thing for them, which makes it harder already. We just want to make that as simple as possible to know, because like at the end of the day, like you were saying, it's almost better to know when people don't do things, right? When people do things, great. That's awesome. I think most softwares and most apps, whatever it might be, congratulate doing things,
right,
and completing things, which is very, very important. We need that dopamine, we need that gratification, everything like that. But as coaches, it's more important for us to know when people don't do things. And I think that's where we're going with the software, is we're diving down that route, because great, Susie completes 7 straight days. Yeah, I want to congratulate her. But if I know that Trevor's missed, 3 check-ins in a row, didn't do his workout the other day, didn't do his weekly, didn't weigh in, like if I can grab him now instead of waiting another week, I have a better chance to get him on track and get better results. Because it's not that we know as coaches, it's not that we know everybody's going to fall off at some point, right? They're going to make a mistake, they're going to miss a day, and that's okay. But the people that are most successful get back on the quickest. And so if we can get clients back on track quicker, that's what gets them better results.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
And from like a business standpoint, right? If we think about like the gym world, right? Retention is a good metric that we want to track, but it's actually a lagging indicator. it's like, it's a result that happened. The leading indicator is someone stopped showing up to sessions, right? And so like, if we're just basing all of our decisions off of retention, we're trying to fix something after it's already happened. But if we start looking at when they start falling off, like they stop showing up for sessions, we call it a lost sheep report. Lots of gym owner, business coaches like really hammer this point, because if we can, get that person back into sessions and start getting the value from their membership again, retention will improve naturally, right? But we focused on the leading indicator and not the lagging indicator. So like to your point in the online world, because it's a little bit different, right? I'm not face to face with you as much anymore. And so we need to have these indicators that someone is starting to maybe create a little bit of distance, or someone is starting to fall off a little bit. So as a coach, I can intervene and help them get back on track before they're too far gone, which is just like, hey, can you just cancel my, I'm too busy, I got whatever, and just, can you cancel for me, right? Like we all know that process. And so the online world is different. Like it's not as in our face as the offline world can be. So I think this is another place where technology can be a coach's helper, right? It can help that coach be a super coach, because you can start to see those marks when someone is starting to trend towards the cancellation.
Yeah, I think it's especially true as you start getting more and more clients, right? If you have 5 clients, you generally know who's interacting and engaging and everything like that, right? Like it's not that difficult. You have 50 online clients, it's easier for Susie to slip under the radar. And then all of a sudden, like you said, it's too late. And so instead of having to comb through all the data and look and dig in and figure out, okay, did somebody interact? Did they upload a photo? Like what's going on? If we can use technology to take that information and bring it to the surface, right away when you log in, hey, here's your clients who are at risk. You got, Susie and Jimmy who are starting to fall off. Let's reach out to them right now. Like that's what makes it so much powerful. It's that, again, we're going to the super coach. Like if you can be doing that, preemptively reaching out to these clients, not only are they going to love you, because nobody else does that. Mm-hmm. They're going to stay longer. They're going to refer people. Like your entire business is going to grow and your clients are going to get better results.
Right. And you're right. Like most platforms just congratulate the stuff that's been done. Yep. And there's the piece that the gap is finding the stuff that should be done but isn't done, which is an opportunity for a coach to step in, help that client be successful and display their value, right? In helping that client achieve the goals.
And I think that's what makes us different, is like we've talked about forever, we're coaches, right? We understand this stuff.
Right.
If I'm just a software dev person, I don't get that. I think, oh yeah, like I want to congratulate people doing things. That reinforces behavior of giving them, badges and confetti and all that stuff does help, but doesn't help the coach. And so I think always leading back to that fact of like, as actual coaches on a day in and day out basis, we understand what's needed out of technology to make our lives easier, not just what seems to be the best thing.
I like it. So looking back over the last 8 years, are there any kind of major hurdles or major challenges that kind of you remember distinctly kind of with the company moving through? Is there anything that pops into your mind as like, we were talking about this before we even jumped on, is like the last 8 years feels like just kind of like a blur, right? I can barely remember like what we did last week versus like what we did 8 years ago, because it's constantly been this just kind of like, all right, how do we keep moving forward? How do we keep, like, there's stuff that goes wrong. Like one that pops into my mind immediately is not like, it wasn't all that long ago, right? When we made a big shift where there was a huge update in the platform and like everything just hit the fan. And it was like complete chaos for about a month of just trying to right the ship. And I don't know if you remember, do you remember, are you agreeing with me in that you remember this scenario as well? We cut out there for a second, so I'm just going to.
So
Do you remember the scenario that I was talking about with the, was that with the upgrade, the view upgrade?
No.
Or what was it?
We changed from, we brought out the client journey.
Oh, okay.
So this concept of creating this journey for a client that can be individualized versus only programs, and it didn't have to be every single day. Like it was something we needed to do, and something that I think really revolutionized the software. But in doing so, we had to change all the back end, like into how programs worked in general. We had to rework all of it, which meant every new thing was fine. Any program that a client built in the future was fine. It was on the new system, but we had to migrate old stuff to the new system. And there were so many variations. We tested for weeks, everything we could think of, and it all worked. And we'd fixed a bunch of issues as we were testing to make sure it all worked. But once we went live, there was so many variations that coaches had that we didn't anticipate for. I mean, it was literally wake up in the morning, open up the laptop, work on support stuff. Like I remember it was during COVID. And so I was in my home office in my basement storage, like next to the air conditioner, and just sitting down there all day long. Like my family would bring me lunch, they'd bring me dinner, and like we just work until like late at night and then shut it down and come back the next day and do it all over again. And it was just, they kept coming up. Right. We that was the hard part, is we couldn't tell which had been affected until a coach reached out to us.
Which is,
and of course, they're pissed.
Right. Which is the worst feeling too. Because it's like, we try to do as much due diligence as humanly possible to make sure that things don't go wrong. And when you're making these massive changes and you don't think about this interaction with this other random thing that could happen over here, and the only way you figure it out, because you get it out to a big enough number of people that are doing things in different ways, that you figure out these like dependencies is probably a better term. And like, because the last thing that we want to do is ship something that's going to screw someone's business up. And so like, not only are you fighting fires, but you actually feel really bad about it. And like, you actually feel for the coach. And so there's like an emotional component that's going on at the same time. And even though I don't really know them, I feel really, really bad for what's going on, and which then like forces you to like not care about your own life very much, and just like, I'm just going to work through this head down as much as possible to try and fix it. And we've had a number of those occasions where it's been like something just didn't go the way that we had assumed it was going to go. And I want to think that we've handled it fairly well. Like, I mean, we don't like pretend that stuff doesn't happen, because it does. It's like, you try and fix it as quickly as you can. You make things right. You give refunds if it's warranted in those situations, and like live to play another day.
Yeah. I think the hard part is usually the worst situations are the end client gets affected.
Mm-hmm.
They yell at their coach.
Right.
Their coach is getting yelled at for something that's not their fault. So they yell at us. You and I can't actually do anything to fix it. So then we have to get our dev team to fix it. Like it's almost this little chain of like working the way through it. But I remember, and it's happened a few times that you're talking about. It's whenever the entire backend changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one time we hired a new dev team, we had changed dev teams without us really understanding what was going on. They changed like our back end language to something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did an app update for the client app. And I'm just thinking, oh yeah, just normal. And it logged every single person out, and it wouldn't let them log back in until they updated their app. So like their app would not work. And like, we didn't understand that until it actually went live. And the team's like, oh yeah, like this is why. I'm like, what? Why did we do that? Like, we didn't understand the software well enough to know that was a very, very bad thing to do. And they didn't have to, like, this new dev team didn't have to, like, they weren't on customer support. It didn't matter to them.
No.
So it just hammered us again.
And I think they were a contracted team too. So there wasn't as much buy-in. And so I probably like the lesson from all of that is like, over communicate and probably ask questions, even if you think there may not even be questions, because you think someone is always going to be doing you think, so you would think the dev would understand it from the customer support standpoint that like, okay, hey, everyone's going to be logged out, right? They're going to have to like, that's just normal. That's part of the process. Like they're thinking that's normal. But from a customer support standpoint, like, no, this is like, we need to like alert people about this, like tell them this is going to happen, or this is going to like blow up into a shitstorm. And so like, I think because much of our team has now moved in-house, that we don't run into those as often because we have better relationships, we have more communication. It's more of a team atmosphere. But like those things are real. Like it's like it happens.
Yeah, it does. And luckily, I feel like having the infrastructure set up now to be able to do the things we want in the future is huge, right? A lot of the big issues happen when the infrastructure changes. Because it's just so tough to touch. It touches everything in the software and the app and everywhere else. Having an in-house team that understands that and understands the impact of like, hey, if we make everybody in the system do something, this might not be a good thing. And we need to let them know ahead of time. I think just you and I being closer to the development helps too, right? We didn't know back then. We didn't understand that stuff. And now that we've been in it for 8 years, even though we can't write a lick of code, we have a better understanding of how software works in general, especially our software works. So I think we can mitigate that a lot better and just be as expectation solves everything usually, right? If we tell coaches ahead of time, here's what's going to happen. Here's what your clients might experience. If they do, here's how to fix it for them, or here's what to tell them. We're generally okay. It's the unexpected things, that's where you cause issues.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is that
the accountability off the back of that
is simplicity.
The support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
It's the drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the #1 accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all of these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
I think that's like a good lesson for coaches that might be listening to this, even in their own businesses. One thing that I've been talking a lot with coaches right now is creating an onboarding program. And so because Coach Catalyst operates like a learning management system, right? We can craft a really good onboarding program for your clients. And so rather than just like jump into the gun and like, hey, here's your nutrition plan, here's your workout, let's go and like, let's get this thing done. Like we can actually like bring people into your program with a lot less anxiety, right? We can take them through step by step. We can do video. We can walk through the app for them. We can have them fill out the forms and the intake. And we can do this over the course of 3, 5, 7 days and like create a really cool experience that most coaches are not doing for their clients, right? Most coaches are simply like, hey, client signs up, they get their credit card, they send them an email with like, hey, here's all the things I need from you. And then they expect that the client is just going to like, take 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours out of their day to just like go through all these and like, get the PDFs, fill them out, put them back in, put the PDF, send it back. Like, it's such a like an overwhelming experience. And so you can start to create these really cool sequences for clients that one shows that you're a coach that actually cares about this process. And I think that speaks volumes to the client. and how you kind of approach your process. And then two, it just helps reduce the anxiety for the client and just helps them have a great experience with what you're trying to do. And so some of these things, like if you 8 years ago would have said, hey, like Coach Catalyst is used for onboarding, I'd be like, nah, like, no, it's not. Like we do like habits and education. But because of how the architecture has kind of evolved and how it sits now, is you can use it, yes, for habits and nutrition coaching and challenges and that kind of stuff, but we can also use it in really other cool ways like onboarding to provide really cool experiences for our clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. And I would even say the most successful coaches that we have at Coach Catalyst all run their onboarding through it. Like, I feel like that's a common trait across all of them, no matter if it's a online, hybrid, in person, like they use it for onboarding because it's so good at that. And because they can set those expectations. And when a client joins you, it's natural, right? They're going to have buyer's remorse. There's going to be that little dip at some point, and getting ahead of that is huge. The more you can get ahead of that and plan things to go out there, it's going to make their life better. It's going to make your life better, and it's going to help keep them long-term as a client.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love it. And we could literally like riff on this stuff all the time, and we'll probably end up doing like a part 3 as things continue to like evolve and the software is continuing to get better and kind of how we're thinking about this industry. But yeah, any last ideas or thoughts that you want to kind of leave with?
I mean, I think there's steps within the evolution of a company or a software or something like that, right? We had the first initial stage that was just get it out there, see what's out there, morph, kind of evolve. I think right now we're kind of at the end of stage 2 of Coach Catalyst, right? We've added all these other features. We've become kind of a centralized hub for a coaching experience that does almost everything you need to do as a coach and can really make it so much easier to coach people and help you scale. Then I think there's going to be this step 3, right? How can we really utilize technology? How can we bring that information up front? How can we use machine learning and AI and these other things to make you, and even, we keep saying a super coach, but like really take that to the next level. Mm-hmm. And I think like a version 3 of this conversation, I think we'll be talking more about that. Like, how did these other advances in technology improve your humanized coaching? Because that's the thing. It's not going to replace us, right?
No.
We've talked about that for a long time. AI is not going to replace you as a coach. Don't worry. You have nothing to worry about. The people who are worried about that are probably not great coaches, honestly. The great coaches out there see it as a tool that they're going to use to augment and to really enhance it. And so I think that's almost that next step, is that fine tuning of how do we make things work so well together that the process and the flow is just so easy.
So you get the information you need as a coach without having to look for it, without having to dig for it in order to coach that client better, right? Yep. Like rather than having to click this button, click that button, click this to get this one thing, like how do we make that just right in front of you when you log in so you can spend your time coaching clients, right? If you're spending less time in the software and more time talking to your clients, we should be doing our job. Like that's what the software should do. It shouldn't have you stuck in there longer.
No, it's funny. Actually, the best softwares in the world, I think, are the ones that you spend less time in,
mm-hmm.
right? It helps actually maybe not do the work, but it helps bring the relevant information for you to do the work.
Right.
And so instead of clicking around and digging and having to take multiple steps, how can we do that heavy lifting and just present the relevant information? That's, I think, the next evolution of software.
All right. While that would be a good one to end on, I've got one thing that I think is going to be a better question to end on. So the last 8 years has been a relative roller coaster, right? Like with any, Coach Catalyst is no different than any business, right? There's highs and lows. There's some really deep lows. There's some really high highs. And we've managed to every time just continue to take a step forward. We live to play another day, right? We're a completely bootstrapped company. And so we've been able to kind of find the money to keep going and kind of reinvesting in the company. So I know you've had moments, because I've had moments as well, where it's like, why don't you just throw in the towel and just be like, man, it's not worth it? What kind of keeps you kind of getting up in the morning to open up support and just every day, just trying to keep the ship moving forward? What is it that fuels you?
I think it's two things, actually. Number one, I think it's the people, right? Our team. I mean, being able to work with one of my best friends on a day in and day out basis, like, that's pretty exciting, right? Our team that we've created around us, I think, are special people who we all enjoy working with on a daily basis. And there's a lot of horror stories out there of people. Like, I don't think people necessarily leave jobs; they leave managers, right, or leave bosses. Like, there's a lot of people out there, a bunch of my friends, who complain about the people they work with. And I think surrounding yourselves with a good group of people is huge. And be able to do that and work with the people we enjoy and respect and like, I think helps a ton. I think the other thing is just our mission, right? We got into this. We got into our gym space and our coaching space to help change lives, to make positive impact in people's lives. We realized we could do that with hundreds of people in our local community. And, you still do, and I still work with a handful of people in our local community. But we realized we could reach the millions of people by scaling through software and helping coaches change more client lives. And so I think, we see it on a daily basis. Unfortunately, our country and our lives are getting less healthy by the day. Right. And I think being able to feel like we're making some sort of impact and helping reverse that in some way, even if it's minor, but if we can help a coach impact one more life and help them be healthier and help them live longer and have a better, positive outlook on life, that's meaningful to me.
Right.
And so, yes, we do that through software, but I think we're close enough to it where we don't just look at, UI and interfaces all day. We're talking to coaches and hearing about their problems and hearing about the clients that they're trying to help. And so I think that helps make it real. It's not just X's and O's on a screen. It's actually people's lives. So I think that kind of helps me a lot.
I think we paused there for a second. It's a fight worth fighting. In life, you can kind of choose the things that you want to spend your time on and where you want to create an impact. And I think helping coaches improve the lives of their people in their community, online or offline, is like a fight worth fighting. Because like with the whole, like where our country, where the health of everything is going, like you have a couple choices, right? You can say like, hey, okay, like we're just going in this direction, so I'm just going to like let it go in that direction, or I can be a piece of where I want to see it go. And there's going to be kind of bigger forces that need to come along with it. But if I'm going to do something on a regular basis, that's probably a worthy cause to go after. And so I think I'm humbled to be like a part of that, as far as a part of that in coaches' lives. And I think for us too, like it comes down to like people, right? Like, yeah, we run a software company, but like we know a lot of people that utilize the platform, and we've talked to them and we've been on calls with them and we've supported them. And like that at its core, I think is what sets Coach Catalyst apart than any other company in this space, is like how much we actually care about our coaches being successful, not even necessarily with the software, and that's a big piece of it, but just with their businesses, so that they can create something that they really enjoy. So I think for me it's a lot of like just the people and a fight that's worth fighting. So I like it. Cool. Anything else we gotta say? I don't need to like do the like, where do you hear about Coach Catalyst? Like, go to coachcatalyst.com. Like,
well, if you want to know,
right.
We're at Coach Catalyst HQ at all the major handles and social platforms.
Right. There you go. That's a good way to end. I don't
know
if
you know that by now.
I don't know if I asked you this on the last one, but I might as well do the quick questions with you. So taco, burrito, or quesadilla?
Taco. Easy.
Every day of the week?
If I could eat good quality tacos every day of the week, I might do it.
Yeah.
So I go for burritos when I'm really hungry. When I'm really hungry, it's like, all right, I just want a burrito to fill me up. But tacos, for the quality and the flavors and tacos any day.
I think I would agree with you. I'm kind of a volume guy a lot of times, and so then I'll lean more towards the big burrito. All right, second
but it's
one.
not for taste. It's just like fulfillment. That's all.
Yeah. All right, second one. If you could live in any cartoon world, what cartoon world do you want to live in for a week? I know you have small children, so you can go like new school or you can go old school too.
I would say I'm going to go Flintstones. I like kind of old school things, right? Like I love a straight razor to like shave. Like I kind of like this, like getting back to old school. I feel like sometimes we're too into technology. Running a software company is kind of funny, but I kind of like going like, hey, now let's get hard work and do something with your hands. Like I still like doing woodworking because like I can make something physical. And so I'm going to go Flintstones for a week.
Do you try and like bring on old cartoons for your kids and like try to get them to like old cartoons at all? Or you just kind of like let them do the Bluey thing or whatever, Peppa Pig or whatever is like the flavor of choice?
Yeah, we did a little bit early on. What we do is we try to keep it to not crazy fast-paced things.
Yeah.
Right. Like Bluey is pretty good, right? It's not this animation zipping all around and all crazy. Stillwater is one of my favorite on Apple TV. It's this like big giant Zen panda that talks super slow, and it's this very like slow, calming show. And it's like we love that one for kids. They still like the old school Disney stuff. So I've got 2 young girls. Little Mermaid is on constantly. Tinkerbell is on constantly. Things like that. But we haven't got into like Darkwing Duck and like DuckTales. Like I would love to get back into those.
Right. I like it. All right. Last question. If you could have dinner with any person, past or present, who would you want to sit down, break bread with, and have some good conversation?
Who would I want to talk to? Let's see. I would probably go, this is probably one that says a lot. I would probably go Walt Disney, honestly. I think what he saw in like, he had a lot of obstacles, right? And like to actually keep going through all the things that like it didn't work and to see something that nobody else saw, especially like the theme parks and like Florida and like how would you turn the swampland into something people would come to? Like, I think that's interesting. You're just kind of learning a little bit more about that.
I think that's a really good one. That is a really good one. One of the best ones I've heard on the podcast, I don't remember who said this one, but Denzel Washington.
Man, that'd be pretty sweet.
It's like it's like one of those like, oh, like when someone says it, you're like, oh yeah, that. But you wouldn't probably think of that one off the gate. But like, has the dude ever made a bad movie? Like, I don't think he has a bad movie.
He hasn't.
Like that's pretty incredible.
I feel like he'd be really interesting, right? Just the stories and the way he talks and the way he can deliver that stuff. Oh, he'd have my attention the entire time, just captivated the whole time.
Right. I love it, man. Well, thanks, dude. Thanks for hanging out for the last hour.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Love it. All right. Check you later.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.